What's up, everybody? I am Matt Aguilar. Welcome to Comic Book Nation's The Pool List, where we talk about all things comics all the time. I've got my regular host, brother from another, Kofi Outlaw, and then joining us this week is the wonderful Jim Viscardi to talk about comics. I know he's always thrilled to do that. How you doing, guys?
We're out of the ice down here in Nashville. So we're into the rain, but we're out of the ice. So
it is 60 degrees. Pulled out the shorts, and to be honest, I've been wearing shorts the whole time. But it's nice to feel the warmth again.
Well, wonderful.
What a week for comics!
I know it's a big week for comics. It's a big week for I feel like everything, regardless of genre or side of the industry, hit Tuesday. So I was like, it's nuts across the board. And by the way, thank you for checking us out, P. Phil. We will be very light spoilers. We try. We know it's Wednesday. We try not to talk about the big giant reveals and stuff. So you should be safe. If I do mention anything, I will make sure to put a warning beforehand. So you're all good to go.
Yes.
And thanks for joining the show. What's up, Damon? What's up, Agents of Fandom? So glad you guys are here. So we got lots of comics to talk about. We got a whole new universe launching, and then we've got things from the big two as well, and plus, because it's me, Power Rangers. Hey, what's up? It's awesome to have that. But let's start with Marvel. Let's start with the continuing Krakoa saga in the Resurrection of Magneto #1. I did not really know what to expect from this book. The books have been, the X books have kind of been, we're in this third kind of final chapter, the fall of Krakoa and the fall of the X-Men, and so obviously you're looking for a little hope from the title, Resurrection of Magneto. I don't know that that's what we got, but I was intrigued the whole way through. And really, this is, again, not going into major spoilers here, but I don't think it's a spoiler to see even from the previews. This is really not a Magneto book. This is a Storm book that is about Magneto. So this is like a completely from Storm's perspective, but it has to do with her relationship with Magneto and what obviously the goal of the title is and how he might react to that. But there's actually very little Magneto in it. So that, I don't know. I was intrigued along the way. There was a bunch of compelling things, especially if you're a Storm fan. But I didn't know what to think. I'm still kind of trying to process how I feel about this book. Jim, what did you think?
Man, a lot happens in this book.
A lot.
And so it's one of those things where I have been kind of just like dipping my toe into this like last phase of the X-Men stuff. So I'm a little lost, and I was a little lost at first, but then as I started reading the book, I was like, oh, wow. One, the book looks great.
Oh,
two,
my God, it's gorgeous.
The book also reads great. And I think one of the more compelling things that this issue in particular, I think, sets up is everyone is always so, when you think of Magneto, you think of his relationship with Xavier, right? Not necessarily realizing that over the years, this is a character that's obviously touched a lot of characters and has built a lot of relationships with whatever. And so being able to kind of see, there's one part in particular that like has a number of callbacks to interactions that the two of them have had, and it really goes to show, what, like, how it all kind of comes together. And like I said, I wasn't really sure what to expect from this book. This was definitely I was going into it thinking to myself, if I don't like it, that's fine, I'll catch it, either at the end or whatever. But this has made me like, all right, no, I'll check this out. And look, I mean, with Al Ewing, I should know better by now and just be like, okay, well, Al's writing the book, I'm in. But yeah, no, I loved it. I think it shows a lot of really interesting aspects to, like, this definitely feels like it's definitely a side quest story, but a really good one. I mean, and it's a great Storm story.
Yeah. Kofi, I know you love typically when the X books kind of dive into the minutia of things and really kind of get in there. How you feel about this?
First of all, I don't remember ever saying that.
You do. We talked about the Powers books, and you're like, I love it when we get into the nitty gritty in the house and all of that stuff. You just talked about it like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was talking about like heady timeline concepts. I think I've been the first one to say that I hate when we have like entire issues or chapters of things where it's like, oh, we're taking a psychic journey through somebody's psyche, and I have to go through all this bad Salvador Dali knockoff stuff for like what the inside of Kid Omega's head is like. So I'm not always like a fan of these types of concepts, and I think I told you like on the side in my more kind of X-y podcast way that I feel like Al Ewing, like Storm is one of his favorite characters, in like in just what he's done with this whole kind of X-Men Red being this kind of crazy Storm Magneto focused book is great. But like, yeah, I think that nobody cracks the code on Storm, and I would love to see like more female creators take a crack at Storm, and that's not a knock against Al Ewing. This is a fascinating story, but like everybody, like half the industry spends like half their time trying to define for people who Storm is and like how many things Storm can be and blah, 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 blah. And I've heard this story so many different ways, and we keep adding layers to it. But it feels like Storm is perpetually this character who never figures out who Storm is. And this just still feels like that. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. It is interesting. I've never thought of her and Magneto. Those are probably weirdly like two of the furthest characters that I've ever considered on the page until we got this last run of books. But I love their dynamic because they are both, you know, top of their line, Omega mutant, strong, play with forces of nature, and kind of have these very different views of life from these two different, you know, cultural experiences. So that stuff is interesting. And I think this book had to we talk about first issues all the time, you and me, Matt. And this one's an okay first issue for me. It's okay. It had to lay a lot of weird groundwork for what we're really getting into in this book. But
yeah, I have no idea how this relates into any of the other Fall of the House of X stuff outside of
I'm getting it.
Magneto back, I guess.
I mean, it's also like weirdly a place for a repository for some like crucial information. Like it's weird that this book is the place we get the best look and explanation of what Dominions are and how Dominions actually exist in this universe.
Right.
And like the fact that there's more than one. And the fact that and if you can decode all this crazy speak that they're written in, that, you know, there's other stuff. I don't want to get too deep. I feel like I'm getting too deep now, but you get all this pertinent information to what's actually going on with the big overarching thing. But it's so weird to get it. And I'm always going to be wondering, and I can't wait for like maybe a future Jonathan Hickman interview to see how much of this stuff was in Hickman's head about where they've gone with like, you know, the White Hot Room, Mysterium, the Mutant Afterlife, and all that stuff, how the Phoenix ties in, how this ties back to Araco and all these portals, how everybody keeps ending up from everywhere back in these places. Like,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say he has no freaking clue.
Yeah, exactly. So some of this is just like, we've got
it was two sentences in the rough outline, and then he was like, yeah, I'll figure this out.
Yeah, like, I feel like we've gotten into a bit of a mess, but Storm is a fascinating and good vessel to kind of go through this. And I hope.
I love seeing Blue Marvel show up too.
Yeah, they call this Resurrection of Magneto. Is that who that was? I meant to ask because I didn't have time to look it up. I read so many books. Like that was the one thing I couldn't pull from this. I was like, who did she meet in the beginning? That's Blue Marvel.
Oh yeah, that's Blue Marvel.
Okay, see, I never got into that whole side of things, so I'm blind.
That's another one of Al Ewing's favorite characters.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. But I think what it says. That's all to say. I think what we set up throughout this whole book I'm always a sucker for certain characters. There's a certain villain that returns in this one that Storm has to face, which was like one of my favorite characters from this whole line. And I hope we do kind of have them stick around in some form or fashion. But by the end, I think I hope that this flips into more of a Resurrection of Magneto book, because this first chapter was more like Storm, Woman of Tomorrow. And I'm not hating that, but like,
I was going to say, I don't hate that.
But like, I do hope the title begins to come into focus more, and there are cliffhanger images that are pretty ominous for where this is going. And yeah, if this is what it does for Storm, I am interested to see if it does this same thing for Magneto. and what that looks like.
Well, I think right, but like I think the X-Men books are in a spot where a lot of these characters have gone through so much, right? And so you have to like walk a balance of when you enter into this new era for the X-Men, how much of the classic characteristics are still going to be ingrained in what these characters are, and but on the flip side, how different are they going to be heading into this new era, right? And I think Magneto, there's a big question mark around him, because that character has been flipped around and done so many different things over the years that, like, what does bringing him back mean for the future of the X-Men line? And hopefully, that's what this book, the journey that this book will take us on.
And I think in that way, the more and more that Marvel seems to kind of confirm, like, hey, we're keeping stuff. Some of this is sticking around. We're moving in. The less scared I get, right? Because I'm like, don't just like clean slate it. Like I can't take that. We've come too far. That's regression to me, right? So I want it's important here. I think this is actually a pretty critical issue to read if you are invested in that next era, because they do a lot here. I mean, without jumping into spoilers, like they very much set the status quo for people who have not been following every single book that's been dealing with Araco. There's a lot that's covered here.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Right, that you can, because unless you've been reading one or two particular titles, they've largely ignored that. Like that place is just like sitting up there. No one's paying attention to it unless you are reading one or two specific books. In the grander scheme of things, it's a mention. And here it's like they actually give you a pretty good summation of like what's happened so far, where things lie, Storm's role. They also give you the, hey, here's where Storm and Magneto are as far as resurrection, protocols, things like that. Like there's a lot of status quo setting in this that I think if you just read this, you could feel comfortable moving forward with Magneto and Storm and understanding like where some of those aspects of the X-Men lie. So I think I agree wholeheartedly. It's a lot. It's dense. It's one of those things that I'll probably read again and be like, oh, I missed that. I totally just missed, because there's just so much information flying at you.
And it looks great. The book.
Oh my God. That we'll say too. This reminds me, that costume might be one of my favorites.
It's Storm's. A great one.
And it's okay. It's the small things, but the way that the lightning bolt ties into the X, oh my God, that's freaking brilliant. And whoever thought of that, like that's amazing, right? So I love those little touches, but like I love this look. I always also love Mohawk Storm anyway, so that's a great look in general. But yeah, I agree. I think it is more of a Storm book, but I do love when we get dives back into relationships. It's always what I loved about the Rogue Magneto dynamic. That's one of my favorites. And again, that was not till more recent X-Men that was had at the time, right? And so over the years they've continued to build on that, of course. But like I love that dynamic. It doesn't always just have to be about Xavier and Eric. It can be about other people. All right. Any last words before we want to move on to the Penguin, which I'm very excited to talk about?
I'm just glad Storm's in her Beyonce era.
The only last comment I'll make is only because it was one of the other books I read that I don't really want to talk too much about because it is what it is. But I don't know if either of you guys read X-Force this week. But there is a moment in there where it looks like the Beast Rehabilitation Project looks like it is that train is leaving the station in a way, and it's interest, and the way they do it is actually really interesting in the way that it also lines up with the fact that like we are also getting Magneto back in a certain way, and so it feels like all of these X-Men books are trying to either bring some characters that may have had drastic changes back to center a little bit, but while also bringing back ones that aren't with us anymore, like Magneto.
There are few characters most characters at this point I don't want to see a hard reset on, because I always feel like
except Beast.
The flaws and wounds. Yeah, Beast is one. You can go back to
just
big feet, man. Go back to big feet and blue and yellow. I don't care. Like that dude is
paint thinner, and then all of a sudden the blue drips off and it's gray, and we're like, oh, it was Dark Beast the whole time.
I mean, look, there's a moment in that X-Force book. it seems easy enough. That issue seems easy enough. I've been following X-Force in chunks, and I missed the last two, but I wanted to read this one only because the cover had me intrigued. And it's one of those things where like you can jump into that one, and where it looks like they're going, and I hope it's where it's going, could be a good ride as we head into the end of this era. So
between 2024 and 2025, there's a chance we might end up liking Reed Richards, thanks to Pedro Pascal, and liking Beast. I would not have had that on my bingo card because I despise both of those characters with a passion in the comics. But hey, I'm up for it, man. You know, yeah. I'm good. If we can do that, and then, you know, good old Kelsey Grammer can hop on the big screen and take the nice version of Beast, we're good. Stars and Garters Beast, that's what I need. I really need X-Men 97 to fix things, because that was the last time Beast was off. All right, moving on. Sorry, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that. And also thank you, TJ, for the kind words. It's always great. Let's move into the Penguin. It's been no secret, me and Kofi have adored this, but I don't know if we've had the chance to talk to Jim about it during one of the weeks we've talked about this. This book is taking us to the point in time where Penguin, we really see like the beginnings of his empire forming when it comes to Gotham and the Iceberg Lounge specifically. And I just, man, it might be hyperbole, it probably is to some degree, but okay, I think we have the ingredients here of like one of the all-time best Penguin runs if this book keeps going the way it's going. Tom King has just absolutely killed this. I love this book so much. Not this series. I love this series so much. And this book, again, like I was riveted throughout the entire thing. I knew what was coming when the dynamic between like the lady and Oswald and stuff, like I knew that, but it didn't make the payoff any less sweet. Like, and it's awful. It's an awful payoff. I should rephrase that. It's an awful payoff, but it still made it like, man, I just love this series so much, and for what it's doing for Oswald as a person. Like, I can even say that now. He's not just the Penguin. It actually feels like I'm getting to know Oswald through the series. I love it. So anyway, Kofi, what you thinking? Because I feel like the disagreement is on bar.
Tweaks. No, I don't disagree. I just have tweaks to most of what you said. First, I think it's not hard to have an all-time run on the Penguin. That's not to take away from friends of the show, Tom King. We love Tom King, but nobody's really done too many great runs with Penguin over the years. So he's always this kind of middle character in other things, which is one thing I love about this book, is that this book and just this chapter, it's called An Unimportant Man, part 1, by the way. So we're going to be getting more of this theme, is every issue of this book plays with that. The fact that the Penguin is this kind of middle of the bunch, kind of never seems like the most threatening, dynamic, exciting, even noticeable guy in the rogues gallery or in any kind of supervillain lineup of anything. But that's the actual strength of his menace, is he uses that.
Super unassuming.
And this chapter, we've gotten it in almost every chapter except a wonderful chapter where he kind of met his match in a wonderful character. But in this chapter, it's really good because it's palpable. It takes us back to things we know, to year 1 Batman era, to like what that familiar story was with Batman trying to clean up the thing. And it actually retcons enough history to make in a very sensible way to show you like how Penguin kind of literally and figuratively is this bridge between like old school gangsters, new age supervillains, and how he plays that position in very purposefully in the middle of the pack. And the things that he does in this book without any kind of, and most of the panels are everybody else's view, right? It's not him. We hear from Carmine Falcone, we hear from Batman, we hear from, and those two alone, we hear from this, one lady that's this interesting twist in the story that you can read for yourself. But like the Falcone Batman thing, and when I was writing about this, it's like, here are two guys who were supposed to be like the smartest and, most cunning and dangerous guys in Gotham City, right? And this chapter kind of turns that history to be like, well, in the middle of that, there was a guy who was playing both of those sides, playing with both of those people, and gets these wins. And that's what I love about this book, is like the Penguin wins. Like, even when you think it looks like he's like downtrodden, he ends up winning, and he ends up winning big. And how this story kind of reframes the Iceberg Lounge, his role there, the history of that place, and what it does is really interesting. So yeah, I think as I ended that article, I was like, if nothing else, like what Tom King is doing here is from now on, you're gonna have to put respect on Penguin's name, like when you talk on Penguin.
Get that Birdman gift ready.
Yeah, yeah. That Birdman
Respect on my name.
respect on my name. Yeah,
I think that the thing about this book that it makes me miss Tom King in Gotham a lot more, right? Like, I know, whatever, people have their opinions of that stuff, but I almost wish that this book was like a B book connected to something like to like other things kind of like happening in Gotham, right? Like this book is a great read on its own, but I feel like that I want to know more about some of the stuff that's happening on the outside of it that I don't know as if either he has the room for here. Maybe we'll get it in like subsequent issues and things like that. But there's just something about when Tom King gets his hands on characters like this that just works. And
yeah,
I think I'm sorry. I was going to say about landing this plane, like just like it should be remembered how drastically this book begins. Like, because we are just kind of going back through time, but where it begins is a pretty drastic point. And I feel like if this plane gets landed the right way, it could, by the time we get back there, we're going to come back with a very different understanding of like what's going on and what we're looking at, and ultimately how it resolves. And I'm really excited for that.
Well, that's the thing too. Like Chip, going off of Jim's point of like wanting to see the more of the world and like see what he can kind of do with this character with more room. I look to the Chip Zdarsky, The Knight, of establishing all these things, and then literally when he got Batman, working all of those things in subsequently over time. And I would hope to also see that here, like whether that's another series involving Penguin, but maybe with some other people, or a different Batman book, whatever. I do want to see like that continued, because there's just been so much great work done here. I don't want it to see it just like sit there.
Well, that's what I mean. I feel like what Tom King is doing with this for Penguin is kind of like what Dan Slott did for Doc Ock, right?
Yeah.
Like Doc Ock as a villain, kind of pre-Superior stuff, was for all intents and purposes a joke, right? Like like he was a villain that you somewhat took seriously when you needed to take him seriously, but for all intents and purposes, you never really did, right?
Right.
And Ock now, post Superior and all of that stuff, like, is someone that you put, there's a bit of respect behind Doc Ock's name. And I feel like that same transformation is happening here for Penguin with Tom. And I love that for Penguin.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a good book that also each chapter is one that I find like very rereadable, like when I'm done, because by the time I get to it, I'm like, oh man, like you go back and you reread it and you're just like, oh man, this is crazy. And like, Penguin wins in this book, as I kind of alluded to, but when you really sit back and break down the levels that like Tom King's working on and why he wins against Batman and how and what that all is for Batman, when you because you don't really get his perspective there, but like what it all is to Batman and what it must seem like and why he makes the choices he makes by the end of this book is pretty messed up, because it goes to like deep to the core of the character. But it just shows what Penguin's real strength is, and that's manipulation. And it's great. And this book continues to be, every time a new issue comes out, I just like clear everything and sit down and I'm like, all right, let's go. And I'm never
get the fine liquor. I sit and get the fine liquor, get my pipe. And just sit in a nice comfy chair.
My little sitting corner. I'm like, leave me alone now.
Before we move to some rapid fires real quick, let's do a round of rec or pass. So Resurrection of Magneto, #1. Thumbs up, thumbs down, Kofi.
I'm going to keep it controversial this week. I'm going to have to go thumbs down. I don't think this is going to be accessible to a lot of people. I think this is for the hardcore X-Men Red fans only, and that's too small of a pool to recommend.
Jim, what you feeling?
I'm gonna go thumbs up because I think I'm the person who has no idea what's going on, and there was a bunch of stuff happening in the beginning that I still didn't know what was going on. But the art and the concepts and the stuff that it introduced felt accessible enough to me to want to keep going, especially with how the issue ends.
Yeah, I will say thumbs up for me. I think because I agree wholeheartedly. This is dense and maybe too much, but I was still compelled by the things that were in there, and I came away going, I need to see how this plays out. So if you've managed to do that with that much information front loaded, then I think it's a win. Real quick, let's move into some rapid fire reviews. Jim, you had a chance to read Ghost Machine.
I did. I got a copy of it here with me.
Oh, very nice. Look at that. See
this. So for those of you who don't know what Ghost Machine is, I think like you need, like, I know this is a rapid fire thing, but I feel like it needs
no, you're good.
Whatever. This is a ton of creators. Like, they're all listed on the front page. This is like Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, Brian Hitch, Lamont McGee, Francis Manipul, Brad Meltzer, Ivan Reese, Peter Snayberg, Peter J. Tomasi, and Maytal Shoot, which I'm sure I mispronounced that. I'm sorry. This is a bunch of creators getting together, wanting to create kind of a new universe in a sense. It's a book put out by Image, so it's all creator-owned stuff. They all own it. They are all sharing in it. And they've teased a bunch of the concepts and a bunch of the different books. Like there's going to be a number of books that kind of spin out of this, right? I think it's like there's Geiger and Redcoat and Rook and the Rockefellers and Hornsby and Halo and Hyde Street. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like all kind of coming at once. And I think inevitably that's where the downfall is for this. There is in a book that I think was supposed to be a taste of what all of this stuff is. I don't know where to go, where to start, how to, or what to really feel there. There's a lot of concepts here that I really, really like the ones that I didn't think I was going to like Redcoat.
It's awesome. I cannot wait for that book.
And like that concept, actually really, really cool. I love the design of Geiger. Like there's not like nuclear skeleton man who's like super powered and there's a mystery to him. 100%. I love that. And like the of some of the later stories, the Rockefellers, I also was not like I wasn't sure that was going to be one that hooked me, and that was it. That one hooked me. And so of the 7 or so concepts in here, I'm definitely in on 3. I've been reading Junkyard Joe, so I'm curious to see like how that kind of fits in to all of this. This is a book that I think is more like a catalog than a one shot, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's not one of these things that you just kind of sit down and read from cover to cover and then like try to dissect it all. I would say if you're going to get this, and I think you should, like kind of take a break between the chapters in a sense, right? And read each chapter for what it is to kind of understand what the concepts are. There's really cool like Marvel handbooky style like character description pages and things like that for all the players involved. But I want another like universe to kind of live in, and I like that this is a creator owned thing, and I like that like there's a bit of buy-in that I do, and every one of these creators is a top-notch creator. And so I want to like the other pieces of it. Rook is very interesting. I don't know if
I love the Rook designs.
Yeah, the Rook design, like the Rook designs are great. Like I would love to go to my comic shop one day and just get like paper cutout masks of all those Rook masks.
Yeah,
because they're really freaking cool. But I don't know as if I fully understand that concept yet. And so I think we'll get there. I think it's a good, like I said, it's a good catalog of what's to come for Ghost Machine, but I don't know if it works as it like Jeff Johns has done before in the past with this stuff at DC, like a Rebirth one shot or things like that, where that's what I expected from this, and that's not what we got. And I don't know if that was just because of expectations versus reality, and I couldn't.
If it had been just the Geiger and Redcoat chapter at the beginning, and then like one extra story, I would have been like completely satisfied. That I think that Geiger Redcoat gets you amped for both of those series, sets the tone for
100%.
both, and blends them together. Yeah, I'm a sucker for history. Like when you, I mean, look, I love the Assassin's Creed franchise. Okay, so yes, exactly. I'm used to Da Vinci making my armaments, right? So like I love this kind of thing. Like, oh, I met Einstein and he was kind of a jerk, and like this and that. There's some really great stuff here. So Redcoat, I'm totally in on. But this is 68 pages.
It's a
lot. and they pack a lot of, like, there's like what, 9? There's like 8 or 9 characters and chapters of stuff between them. So it's a lot, but I really am intrigued, and it already has me hooked for a couple books. Real quick, because I know we gotta run. Spider-Woman number 3 continues the Gang War tie-in. If you were a longtime Spider-Woman fan, your heart's gonna break a little bit, especially if you've been reading since the Dennis Hopeless days. They do some stuff here that had me reeling, and I could kind of see it coming, and I was like, please don't. Oh no, it did. So I don't know. I'm still, it was great. It's a good issue, but man, I'm just a little, for the longtime fans, you're going to be a little split on this. And then Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 116 continues the Darkest Hour event, and has a pretty significant, which you'll probably see later on Comicbook.com today, has a pretty significant event with your boy there on the cover. So this is, if you're a fan of Ranger Slayer, as I am, this is also huge for you. This is like half a Power Rangers book, but it's also like half Ranger Slayer and Dragon. So if you are a fan of that side of the universe, you should definitely read this because it's big. So real quick before we leave, Kofi, you got a recommendation for the week?
Just Penguin was mine.
Boom. Jim?
Also, I check out Punisher this week. It's a great one. I didn't drop it in the rundown. In 3 issues, and this is the issue where we finally kind of get the new Punisher's motivation, why it all works and why it all comes together, and it comes together really, really well. And this kind of sets it on what I believe is going to be the path. It does a great possible reinvention of a classic Spider-Man level character that I think is intriguing enough. So that's another one I'd check out as well.
I'm going to give something a shout out. Dear Editor is a book I have actually been quite excited for. And it's something kind of outside the usual superhero centric stuff. So definitely give that a look. So that is our recommendations for the week. Obviously, thank you so much for joining the show, chiming in. We love you guys. We love that we were part of P. Phil's journey back into the X-Men. Thank you for that. Shout out. It's awesome. We started Comic Book Nation talking about Krakoa and House and Powers, so that means a lot. Hope you stick around. If you want to hear about more books, different books, your own recommendations, let us know. And of course, we will also always be talking about comics and everything big in geek culture on Comic Book Nation, the main show on Fridays. So until next time, peace. Catch you later.
See you.
Deuces.